thank you all for being here. I know you are very busy people, but it takes time. And there are some business people too, Patrick. And next semester, I'm going to have an MBA graduate entrepreneur as a guest speaker, so you all come too for that. So today, we have the privilege of having Dr. Tina Gauthier and Dr. Victor Gabriel as our speakers, speaking on interdisciplinary colloquium. Used to be PhD master's colloquium, but morphed into interdisciplinary theme really quickly for some reason. And it's a good topic because this university is very eclectic and diverse, and it's a way to integrate different disciplines into different programs, and this university can do that. So I'm proud to present the chair and faculty of chaplaincy department speaking on that theme, as well as how to integrate spiritual care into our stressful lives, which is a good topic for everyone. So please welcome.
So thanks everyone for coming. We're going to address the topic of spiritual care, and I kind of thought we'd do it via a conversation between us that I hope unfolds in the moment.
So yeah, thank you for having us.
So we can start just by what is spiritual care? So what is it for you?
Oh, great. In my opinion, spiritual care is a sort of psychological or counseling care that comes from a person's deep spiritual background, that comes from a person's meditation experience, for example. And more specifically, it comes from a person's own bearing witness to their own suffering in their life. I think the model that I have for my understanding of spiritual care is that I take care of my suffering, and that way of me taking care of my suffering is mirrored by how I invite or encourage the other to take care of their own suffering, or support the other in taking care of their own suffering. Okay, that's as far as I've thought about it.
Yeah, that's similar. In some ways, I see something similar to my own. Because I was thinking that, like, what is spiritual, or what is spiritual to me? And so when you said bearing witness, I would be bearing witness to my connection in this moment, or my resistance, or fear of connection, or fear of intimacy with you or everyone here, or the fact that I know that I'm being filmed. So bearing witness to that would be caring, like that, bearing witness to that caring of what is spiritual to me.
I think we both have a extended meaning of care. Right? I think for me, care just extends beyond beyond counseling. care can also, spiritual care can also bring someone a glass of water if they need it, right? Or making an appointment. Or spiritual care can also mean referring someone to an expert or
Yeah, you're reminding me of the model that I use is from the Bernie Glassman, is to approach with not knowing, bearing witness, and loving action.
yeah,
So then you're talking about the loving action.
Yeah.
And he always uses the example of if you see someone's is bleeding, then you don't just sit there and be like, oh, you must be suffering, that must hurt. You just go and you get them
Yeah. Please tell me more about that.
yeah. Tell me more about how that feels.
I think we come from that perspective. I had Bernie Glassman for a workshop at Narupa. So,
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So it was fun. I remember that. And also moved by his Auschwitz and his homelessness project. So what else? There?
That's about spiritual care. Well, the second question on the flyer is, what are the key ingredients to it? Or different approaches,
Hmm.
maybe besides bearing witness or, yeah, so what do you think are the key ingredients?
I've seen many models out there, the topics in individual models are so they overlap and it's not really clear. And I like clear boxes, but I don't think you can join. You can do that even in Bernie Glassman's project, right? Not knowing, not knowing, bearing witness, and loving action. You can make a criticism that those are still not distinct boxes. They sort of merge and blend with each other. And I think for our department, the MD department, we have a model, and that's the model of academic, practitioner, and spiritual caregiver. And of course, again, those boxes don't cover everything. Those categories don't cover everything that is included, but it is a way for us to talk about stuff. Right? So academic is we see spiritual care as derived from these three boxes: academic, practitioner, and spiritual caregiver. And under academic, we put down there Asian and Western academics. The students do take REL, the religious studies classes, and they also touch on their learning at those classes in the MD, in the Buddhist chaplaincy classes. And we bring them historical consciousness, the idea of historical consciousness, and the idea of Western and Eastern hermeneutics, the art, the science and art of interpretation. And under practitioner, we encourage or support the students' own journey into their spiritual tradition, and also the co-curricular of our school provides the student with an opportunity to connect with or to be deeply touched by various spiritual traditions in President University of the West. And then finally, the spiritual caregiver part piece that includes, we talk about previous department chair, Danny Fisher, includes a prophetic voice. Okay. So there's some engaged Buddhism or activism that is part, or that we see as part of spiritual caregiving, as part of loving action. So, and then in spiritual caregiving, they we train them in, we borrow heavily from psychology, the movements of psychology. We borrow heavily from the third, what we call third wave of psychology, or humanistic psychology, or existential psychology. And then we borrow those best practices and we integrate them into this version of offering spiritual care that is respectful of the others, the clients' spiritual traditions. Right?
Yeah, so are you still in the academic realm, or did you merge into the other two as you were talking?
Yeah, I merged into the other two as I was talking, because it's, yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking that for me, it's really difficult to have, I understand to have the clear boundaries or the clear structure, but part of spiritual care and spiritual counseling, I think that makes it a little bit different from, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, from psychology, is really coming into this moment so that I'm really practicing being in relationship in this moment and working to be genuine with myself and with the person that I'm counseling, so that I'm meeting them in a place of mutuality, so that I'm trusting that the counseling that happens between us, or the conversation that happens between us, will enable us to both grow in mutuality, like mutually in the moment, which I think Buddhism has so much to offer that. And like I was speaking with Monica Sanford a little bit earlier about, dynamics that can happen between, like we're peers, but you're also my supervisor, but we're also in many ways together running the department. And then there might be a different relationship if I'm talking to the student. And another thing that I see as important to spiritual care and counseling is really me noticing this shift that can happen in power, or that to notice how the other person sees me in terms of in a power role or not. And I see that as similar to what happens between teacher and student in Buddhism as well, at least in the Zen tradition. There's this, like in the Rinzai, it talks about the host and the guest. And so sometimes the teacher will be the host and the student will be the guest. But in other times, the teacher will approach the student as the guest and enable the student to become the host. Sometimes they'll both be guests, sometimes they'll both be hosts. And all of that can happen within one conversation. And that's what I see as where the healing is possible. And for my deepening is to become aware when that shift happens.
Yeah, maybe you can say more about that, the shift. When do you see that happening? How that manifests for you?
Well, like I was just noticing when you were talking about the department and the overview of the department and the history of it, I saw you in more of a host role because you have more experience in that area, I need to understand more history, and I saw myself as more, that I was learning from what you were saying. And then, as I tried to meet you, I felt like there were moments when I was talking that I shifted into a host, and now I kind of feel like I'm back into guesting. That we're both guests.
Yeah. I do recognize that, you know, at a certain, first of all, let me start with the point. I do see that, at, you know, because I am a Vajrayana practitioner, and from the Vajrayana practice point of view, we are all guests and hosts of this present moment, right? The moment that we find ourselves is a moment filled with potential, filled with a lot of pregnant with potential, and then to honor and respect, call to awareness of to invoke that present moment, and
How to invoke it, though.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah. What would you suggest, or what are your thoughts about that?
Invoking it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's difficult. Sometimes I think it's difficult to talk and invoke it at the same time.
Yeah. I think the silence and space that we give in our conversation makes an invitation for that present moment to become present for both of us. I think so. I think that in the classroom situation, allowing allowing the spaces for student contribution, or allowing students to role play or have discussions is also another way of invoking that present moment. Right? I'm
Yeah.
wondering your opinion.
Yeah, and I think, I agree, and I think allowing students to really come out of that place of not knowing. I think that the silence can be almost like fertile ground for the students to really be spontaneous, because I think that is a key ingredient in spiritual care and counseling.
I think as an aside, I am treasuring this moment learning from you, because I don't think, even if I visit your class, because of the roles that we play in the department, I cannot just visit your class as me wanting to learn from you. Because I would, if I visit your class, I would be seen by you and by the students as your supervisor visiting your class,
Yeah.
right? You know. So this is an aside. I am treasuring this moment about how your thoughts on spiritual care. I obviously can't attend your spiritual care class, though I would like to.
Yeah, I think that, just like I do feel like we're learning together in this moment, and I think that we're all students to one another. And I really do believe in that approach to my life, that I'm a student here to learn. And even if I'm teaching, I'm learning how to teach. I'm learning how to find my voice. I'm learning how to lead.
I think it's kind of, is that the word for you? That, when we teach, that people expect us to be experts in the field of spiritual care, but at the same time that we understand that this need, that we also role play that we are not experts, that it is the moment that we find ourselves that invites us to perform certain roles, or certain loving actions, right? So again, going back to your Bernie's example, right? A lot of not knowing, bearing witness, and loving action. I mean, just to tie it back nicely. You know how I like cute bows.
You like to wrap things up?
Yeah.
A little package?
Yes, my Hello Kitty moment.
What if I destroy your package?
That is a moment in itself. There's also the evil Hello Kitty.
Yeah, I think there's something, I don't know, there's something about containing it that makes me a little nervous.
You want to say more?
I did want to say more about something that was, I lost it.
Maybe you'll come back. We can circle back.
Oh, because I think that the students wanted to know, there was that question of how to integrate it into the daily life. Yeah. So I was thinking that for me, integrating spiritual care and counseling, it could just be counseling myself or being with myself or is really is a constant practice. So it's like right now, not worrying about just being comfortable, just being here, talking with you, and not worrying about what I have to do.
Yeah, all being comfortable with the being uncomfortable, right?
Or being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But really, just not, or that practice of not thinking about. Well, see, it's not really happening right now, so it's kind of hard for me to.
Oh, I can tell people.
I feel like I'm firmly set here. But most of the time, like earlier this morning, I was just thinking about tomorrow, and I wish that I was tomorrow that I didn't have to do what I had planned to do, or worried about something that happened yesterday. And I really spend a lot of my wasted hours doing that. And then I started thinking about this talk, and that having spiritual care for myself, starting with me, is just letting go of that and really just making my lunch and putting stuff in my bag and letting go of the thoughts of later and just taking things one step at a time. There's a question.
Well, more of a comment. I'm not versed in a lot of the Buddhist lingo. When I think of, if I may, when I think of spiritual care, for me, I had to break it down in another way. I'm like, okay, what is physical care? Something that I'm not so good at, but I'm trying to be. Like, how is physical care? It's like, okay, how do I take care of my body? Like, what do I eat? How do I exercise? So then I'm like, okay, what's spiritual care? How do I take care of my spiritual care? I don't consider myself religious, but you know, then when you were talking, that really hit a spot when you talk about stressors. And what stresses me out, and how do I handle that stress? It's like that. How I guess I need more conscientious about how to taking care of my spirit, myself.
Right, because it seems really obvious, like the Bernie Glassman thing, if someone's arm is cut off, then you know how to take care of that because it's an emergency. But what's really tricky is that day-to-day thing. You know, a lot of times I will get this like little tension headache, and to really, a lot of times I will have a tension headache, and then my mind will be like, let's review the day. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna review the day because that is not gonna help the tension headache. We're just going to like just drive and focus on driving in traffic. And even if I'm uncomfortable driving in traffic, just to really be with that. And I do think that it is really a challenge for me to relax my body, to like relax my shoulder down, and to feel relaxed when my body is like a little tense and needs to stretch and needs to exercise more. And
Your spiritual diet.
my spiritual diet or need. For me, it's like a need to really care for this self, care for this. That's what my teacher always says. Take care of this. The most important thing, she repeats all the time, most important thing, take care of this. So it's like whatever is happening right now. And honestly, I override that all the time. It's like, oh, I'll take care of that once I do this other thing. Push. Is that true for you? Or what is true for you?
What is true for me? Well, I think some people have known about this. I mean, what I speak about. At my 45th birthday, I had a very interesting realization for myself. I learned a very good thing, you know, that I will not have another 45 again. And I felt so relieved.
Like it's over, check.
Yeah, I
45
would have another 45 years more. I was so happy. I felt this sense of gratitude, relief, and appreciation that maybe I will have less than 45 years more to go. And that stemmed, and with that came a lot of a decision to care for myself. Yeah, and with that came the parallel to that came with the decision to care for myself deeply, and I do agree with Juan that it's hard to put ourselves in boxes like, you know, I have this intellectual part, I have this physical part, I have this spiritual part. I tend to see that you know, these are boxes that we use to talk to people so that people will get confused, or you know, when we talk to ourselves, that not we get confused. But I think for myself, to make myself really happy, you know, to be happy in the present moment, or to be happy where I am at. We who have, you know, have been educated in ways that will make us unhappy, and we know we go back to those ways, but
Conditioned.
yeah, we you know, but I think also at the same time of making ourselves happy, we also educate, we take the I mean, I must take the time to educate myself on making myself happy. There's some kind of education. I don't think we fully know, or I fully know what will make me happy. I don't believe that. I believe that I still need to learn, continue to learn to make myself happy and happier.
Could you speak to the effects of breathing on your happiness or relaxation, and also the notion of impermanence on your self-care?
Well, I'm just really, when I think about my breath, I am just really fascinated by the fact, and continuously, I hope that never dies, this fascination that I reside in this body that breathes on its own. It's just like, I mean, I just think that's amazing that that somehow was created. That it's like a live machine that I live in, and blood pumps around and it digests things, and I just think it's completely a miracle. So me connecting with my breath, I don't know, it's continuously fascinating to me. And so I do think that entering into that mind of curiosity, it does relax me, because I become like a follower of the mystery or something. Didn't you have a second question?
Yeah, the notion of impermanence, how that contributes or not contributes to your happiness, or you know, learning how to be happy.
It's hard for me to not answer that. It's like sounds really intellectual to me. Well, I guess one thought that I have is that just that idea of no self, or that I'm not one self. So the self that I present today, even if it's I'm dissatisfied with it, will be different tomorrow. You know, just that belief that whatever I say, you know, today, I can wake up tomorrow and start over again. So I'm not like impermanence. I like that idea.
I guess you want me to answer that too.
Well,
Yeah.
I was thinking that you mentioned a different kind of impermanence, which actually I was curious, because you said that you were more than halfway through your life, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, so the notion of impermanence, that you're not going to be here forever, comforts you.
Yes,
Right?
obviously, yeah, obviously. In a way,
Whereas other people are scared about it,
yeah,
but then,
I think you know, I don't like you. I mean, I wouldn't like the people here or the people we meet in our school community to treat me differently. But I have chronic illness, and so I'm seldom not in pain or in discomfort. Very seldom. Yeah. And I've been ill long stretches of time as a child. And so, you know, there's a lot of discomfort in my life. I mean, discomfort in my body. Yeah.
But I guess what it made me think of was that you have this belief that when your body dies, there's an end to it. There's an end to something.
Yeah.
And when you, I had this thought of, but there's no way out.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, you have this body only for a while. Yeah, that's true. There is a certain think our mind accompanies us all the time. I think, yeah, and that's that I do believe there is the no way out, you know.
So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, but no, and at the same time, making a close loop, we have been educated in that our mind is pure, brilliant, and beautiful, right? And of course, we grow through our meditation practice. We experience it, and also grow in faith that we have that. Right? And so that is also a source of comfort. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to our education. If the Buddha only spoke about the first two noble truths and never spoke about the 3 and 4, then we might as well commit suicide today. But he did speak about third noble truth, that there is liberation from suffering, from discomfort.
So I went to that conference yesterday about mental health for clergy, and the topic was on suicide.
Clergy and suicide, or suicide in general?
The topic was on, no. Yeah, it wasn't on suicide by
clergy.
but, it was just on suicide in general. But I had the question, which I'd love to hear your answer, of what does Buddhism have to say, or what do you think about committing suicide, especially if you're in a situation where you have a terminal illness, and there's a lot of people these days that are who are committing suicide because they have terminal illnesses and they don't want to die the natural way from this illness. And I just was curious, the mind, what it does to the mind to decide to kill yourself versus to die the way that with your body as it's naturally shutting down.
Yeah. You mean personally, or you mean other people?
I guess you can only answer
Personally, right? Right, it does. Yeah. I think if you ask me, then I am caught in a very strange situation. Right? I mean, a very unusual situation that I am clergy, right? And to be clergy, in my opinion, is that our body doesn't really belong to us, right? And our life experience also doesn't really belong to us. It is for our students and our community. So one has to, in my opinion, then for me, I have to use this body in a way
That's teaching.
Yeah.
And is of service.
Or at least in harmony with the wishes of the people who look to me for support and guidance. I think that's the way it goes.
So if it benefited everyone for you to kill yourself?
It would, but I don't think they would agree to that. So, and who knows? We can only we can say that now in our finest condition. Who knows what will happen? And pain and long pain have tremendous effects on our mind. Not say our mind, but her mind. There's always, who knows what we will decide. That's as far as I go.
I like that answer. I had a really selfish response where I was like, but I would want my mind to be strong.
Mhm. Yeah, we would. I think that's a good wish.
Is there any other questions or things that you'd want us to?
When it comes to spirituality, shall we also talk about the modern day challenges?
The modern day.
Challenges like especially the pragmatic ways, day-to-day experiences that we have and how to tackle these. People are so much busy in today's world and they have become more selfish and it's very hard to help others and all. So what is it to do with this spiritual care and spirituality for us to offer, to come out of the stress level?
What came up for me was I heard Norman Fisher talk, who's a Zen. He's the abbot of a Zen center. Where in San Francisco? He's American born, and when he was up to becoming abbot, he said to his Zen community that he was like, the most important thing is that I am a healthy and happy abbot. And he said that his Sangha was just horrified. They were like, oh, it's so selfish. And then he just went on to explain about why that would be so important to really, and just similar to what Victor had just said, is to really care for this and to model that. To model saying no, to model, taking care and keeping up this body and doing what it takes to, just model self-care and, as best I can.
Yeah, I think from what Bhante has said, I think we all have no time, right? We are all overworked and underpaid, right? And it's true we have no time, but then we also need to have time to relax, and sometimes that involves saying no, or sometimes that involves saying I'm sorry. Not just no, but sometimes we cannot meet deadlines, and then we just have to say I'm sorry. And then even if the other person, in my own opinion, is not to be afraid of other people scolding me, or other people being disappointed in me, or other people getting angry at me, because I take my time, I have to take my time, because in English, take my time means a different thing. And sometimes it's being at peace with that looking after yourself or might mean that you get other people pissed off or disappointed in you, or you hold up other people, and what to do. Right? Being a human being is very difficult, I think. I think there is no easy way out for that. And a lot of people say, there is a lot of people say, oh yeah, just tell people to take their time, just tell people to look after yourself. But I think in the real practical aspect is that when you look after yourself, you do disappoint people, and you just have to be accepting of that, accepting that, oh, this person is going to scold you. Okay, let them scold, and after they scold, then you can say, okay, what else can we do? And then move on from there.
And then I was thinking, my like personal practice is, sometimes I see my life as this treadmill that is just going, and I just am doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. And then sometimes I'll practice where I actually go to the gym and run on a treadmill, and that motion, and how do I, while I'm running, I've been just practicing running just for 10 minutes a day, 10 to 20 minutes, and it's hard. How do I, when I'm running, find that relaxation, find that point of focus, so that as I'm running, I actually am like in myself and in the moment. And there is this moment. My dad, when he taught me as a little kid, and he said, he's like, you have to feel it in your body. He's like, there's this Zen moment. He's like, where things just come together and you just feel at one and at peace. And, just finding that while I'm running. And to me, that's finding that every day and remembering to keep looking for it.
I lost it.
What did you lose?
What I was gonna ask.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
I think, as you were talking about, selfishness and spiritual care, in, maybe Buddhism gives very strong answers. For example, in Samyutta Nikaya, I remember one deity comes to a monk in the forest who is meditating, and he's asking the monk, you look so shining, and you feel so calm, and with this jungle life you still look so pleasant. How do you do that? And the monk says, I do not repent over the past. I do not daydream about my future. I live just at this very moment. That is why I'm looking different. And the many people today, either they repent over the past, or they are really worried about their future, which is yet to come. You never know. And people do not really think of this very moment, and they try to be focusing on this at this very moment. I think it makes a big difference. And also when we think about this, the selfishness, well, in selfishness doesn't mean like you care of yourself, you be good, and you do good, and it definitely will not harm the others. So as long as you're not harming the others, you be good and do good, and that kind of spiritual selfishness, I think, makes a big difference. So I think people have to learn these things, to think of yourself first. Many of the times, like, we find many people think of the others, but they do not think of themselves. That is one reason why many people suffer, and their stress level really increases all the time.
You found it?
Yeah, I found, thank you, I remember. As you were saying, as Bruno was saying, about, taking care of self, it sounds really selfish, but in the long run, it's really helping others, because hurt people, and that notion, though, is so grossly misunderstood, especially in a Christian-based country or the places. And this university is so unique in that it's secular and yet it's built on Buddhist principles. And so, you know, I wish more people attended this colloquium to learn that taking care of self is really service to others, you know, and how to really do that. And as chair and faculty of the chaplaincy department, I hope in the future, speaking of future now, build you know, curriculum that offers students who are not necessarily Buddhist or religious like Juan, to take classes or to learn about self-care or to learn about spiritual care without being mystical. And there's a workshop by University of San Diego that's coming up. So there are a lot of movements and initiatives that integrate, you know, this one is contemplative studies, that to incorporate contemplative studies in other areas of academia. That kind of movement is really happening. The initiatives are really on now. And I hope the University of the West will be like spearheading that kind of movement as well, you know, because this university is so unique. And so if you could speak to, you know, because you're building curriculum as well, right, for the future. And I know Deborah is helping with that as well. So if you could, you know, speak to that, that'd be great. And also how to change the language of contemplative studies to not sound so mystical for instance, business people, you know, and human management.
You want me to start or you?
Let me just start with a little bit only, and then you can finish. So what Mika is alluding to is that at our external peer review, they suggested that we revise or do an internal self-study. And part of the internal self-study was to form this curriculum development committee, whereby the two of us and with 3 students selected by the students review the content of the Buddhist, the Masters in Divinity program. That's all. I just want to put a context to it.
Wait, so then let me just ask you a question.
Yes.
So then the curriculum development committee is really, I thought it was looking more specifically at the MDiv program and how these contemplative or spiritual care practices are developing within the program. Right?
Yeah, that was one of those ideas. Yeah. The other idea is to streamline, tighten, and check whether the classes match what they say they teach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Meeting our PLOs and all that good stuff.
So then I think what
Looking at
we,
Monica.
And they were also talking about interdisciplinary.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
think what Mika is asking is how can we work to spread that or integrate that into other departments at our school.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a really good question, but I don't think there's, I wish that I had like a packaged answer. And I don't right now.
Well, we can start the conversation and, you know, continue talking about it.
Yeah, I think so. Because also part of the I mean, you see, we want to have contemplative education, but then to do contemplative education, we also must do it in a way that matches our way of doing contemplative. We cannot say, okay, we want to do contemplative education and then force the departments to do contemplative education. That's not the way. We also must respect where they are at in their own process, and then introduce contemplative education in a way that respects the moment. You know, we will all talk about the moment and respecting the moment. Then contemplative education must, the way it's taught, must role play that. We cannot use a dominant subjugated model to teach contemplative education.
Yeah, and I also think that, you know, that as chaplains, we're really looking at spiritual care is very much about not proselytizing and very much about interfaith. And, you know, just when, even though we were talking about what Buddhism can give spiritual care, when Venerable was talking, I was thinking, you know, Christianity says a lot about this. You know, this, I just was listening to a Christian speaker yesterday that, or last night, that was talking about, you know, being in God's will instead of being in self-will, which to me, I can almost draw a direct parallel. And then she actually told a story about that she's like, we are all just fish, and God is the water, and we don't see that we're in the water, and all we have to do is open up to the fact that we are really all in the water right now. And to me, that's there's Dogen Zenji writes the Genjo koan, and it's like almost a story straight. It's almost exactly. He talks a lot about the fish in the water and the birds in the air, and to know that that's like emptiness and form just working together. And you know, as far as interdisciplinary fields, like what happens in the hospital, and I think what is also happening right here at this university is that different fields have different belief systems and different perspectives. So in the field of psychology, spiritual care might be called, I don't know, something different. In the field of business, you know, I see business people giving presentations, and they seem very much in the moment and within themselves. And I don't know what they call that, but I don't want to tell them that what they need to do is come and take a contemplative meditation class in order to do that presentation better. Because I think that's kind of rude. It's more like a conversation to figure out, like, what is it that that we're doing, and how can we learn from one another? So does that make sense? Because I feel like it's not in a package, because, you know, what is called mindfulness, what is called contemplative practice, and I don't know what the other words would be. That's what we're using in religious studies or spiritual care. But other fields might call that same experience a different thing.
Monica, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I don't, this is a lovely conversation, and it's really a continuation of, it's like a microcosm of a much bigger conversation that's happening all over campus right now that has to do with these issues with interdisciplinary and contemplative education, and how do we apply these things as a university, both at the graduate level and things like the divinity program, and at the undergraduate level, and how do we do that in a way that allows it to arise organically, like what Tina said, rather than being dictated from above, which doesn't actually work most of the time in education. So I'm going to that conference on contemplative studies in San Diego on behalf of the university to report back what's going on. I don't know if anybody else is going. You going, Mika?
I'm going to attend on the Friday morning sessions.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and I will go on Thursday.
All right, so a whole bunch of us will be down there, and we can report back. And you know, this is all working through the strategic planning process, and there's a whole group of people working on integrated education coming next spring. So it's just fun, it's just wonderful to see all of these threads coming together. And I just wanted to make people here aware that this is the colloquium is one of those threads, and it's a very important one, but it's not the only one. So I hope these conversations keep happening in other places and amongst other people here at the university and with our partners out there in the world.
And we're talking about the contemplative studies, workshop, and, how we can bring what we learned there back here and then continue our conversation and integrating, what we learned into the larger, academia at US, right? Any comments?
I think it's okay, right? Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Perfect timing.